Hello, I'm Chris Hartwell, and welcome to the Heartbeat. Today we're going to be talking about Andrew Stanton's Finding Dory. Join me, won't you? So, Finding Dory picks up roughly 1 year after the events of Finding Nemo, where we are reintroduced to our favorite forgetful fish, Dory, who's actually experiencing something rather new, that being memories, more specifically about the family that she was separated from as a child. And so, with the faithful clownfish companions, Marlin and Nemo by her side, she embarks on an adventure to find her parents and herself in the process. Now, walking out of this film, one of the primary things that I felt like it was trying to do was actually kind of reorient my expectations, my outlook, and my perspective. And it first of all wanted to do that on a narrative level, which certainly wasn't the easiest thing in the world, because this was, after all, a sequel, and therefore carried with it a lot of inherent expectations. But I can tell you straight away, Finding Dory, like Monsters University, Pixar's other recent sequel/prequel that I didn't initially really feel like we needed, absolutely proved that it could not only emulate certain elements from the original, like its tone and visuals, but more importantly, in my opinion anyways, actually move into some uncharted waters to, again, reorient my expectations when it came to the narrative, which was really no small feat, but was really achieved, again, like Monsters University, by choosing to tell someone else's story instead of just making this the second chapter of the first film's central character. On Finding Dory, though, the screenwriters really created for themselves this rather unique challenge by choosing Dory as their new central character, who's this fish who constantly forgets things, because they had to both hold true to that defining characteristic while at the same time ensuring that we, the viewing audience, who for the most part have no problem remembering what just occurred moments ago, weren't just getting more and more frustrated that we were always a few steps ahead of Dory. And what the screenwriters very smartly did was actually give this film something that both Dory and we, the viewing audience, could latch onto and move forwards in together, that being these slowly doled out flashbacks that moment by moment lit both of our ways. And speaking of that way that was being lit, I did initially kind of have this really ridiculous concern that because this film was set in the same sea that Finding Nemo was, we wouldn't be able to actually experience any new locations, which is just, again, absurd because our planet is covered in 70% water and there are some extremely varied locations and environments beneath it. But what was great was seeing the filmmakers not just choosing beautiful and varied locations, but selecting places that in their geography, color, and light perfectly connected to this film's central character and her outlook on the world. One that included a colorful optimism as represented in the vibrant coral reef, and then a hazy confusion as seen in the murky kelp forest, and finally that feeling of being trapped and controlled by something greater than her as seen in the aquarium. And to continue to talk about that central character just a little bit more, that was yet another element that this film was really intent on changing my outlook on. Now, on Monsters University, going in, I really didn't have much trepidation that Mike Wazowski would be able to carry that film, but I was rather nervous that on Finding Dory, in forcing to center stage the first film's more or less comedic relief, we would only be made to discover just how two-dimensional she really was. And I've got to say the filmmakers actually kind of utilized that outlook in a really kind of unique and cool way, showing that it wasn't just me, the viewing audience, that had this initial impression of this character, but so many of the characters in her actual life and in this actual narrative, and then spending the rest of the time sort of, again, reorienting and shifting our perspective of her. And integral to that, I cannot praise enough Ellen DeGeneres' performance. Obviously, she was hilarious, able to infuse her unique charm into even the most straightforward of lines, but even more than that, she was able to take this almost broken record of a character, someone who was constantly skipping back, and make her fresh and varied, full of hopes and fears that were extremely relatable. And something else that this film did extremely well, which really helped to bolster Dory as the lead character, was bringing all these new side performers who really acted as great foils to her, my favorite of whom being Hank the Octopus, who unlike Dory was quite easily able to form lasting, memorable connections with others, but just didn't want to, which also in a way sort of presented this great unspoken temptation to Dory, that being just to choose the simpler path, to stop trying to remember and just disconnect. And with these side characters as well, from Destiny the whale shark to Becky the waterfowl, there was something intentionally unifying about them in that nearly all of them possessed some kind of shortcoming that forced them to rely on others, which directly led me to understand that it wasn't just my expectations about the narrative or outlooks on the characters that this film was seeking to reorient. Almost from the opening frame, I was very quickly swept up in the much larger perspective shift that this film was going for, which was that characters like Dory, someone with, as society has labeled it, a special need, and stories like hers are very important to tell. And there was one moment in particular in the third act where I thought more than any other moment prior to that, Man, this is frustrating. Dory is so in the dark, once again, not knowing where to go or what to do or who she is, and I do. And if she could just be like me and see the world like I see it, all would be resolved. But then, as the scene continued, director Andrew Stanton, being the brilliant man that he is, actually took me into Dory's point of view for a moment, allowing me to see the dimly lit, murky, suffocating world around her. And suddenly, I felt lost too, and my frustration was replaced with, okay, I guess I only thought I knew how to get out of that. And I'm not going to spoil exactly how the scene unfolds, obviously, but the way that the filmmakers chose to get Dory out of that predicament really did illuminate, once again, what this film was trying to say, which was, will you allow your vision to be reoriented and actually see characters like Dory in the way that they view the world as valuable? And as the film wrapped up, what I realized was it wanted me to look beyond the external conflict of Dory seeking her parents and the assumption that that was what this film was really about, and actually just take its title at face value. This film was about Dory finding Dory, which was why, unlike some critics, I thought the way the film continued to develop into the third act was actually paramount in communicating its central theme. And to close things out, I think we need more films like this, or at least ways I need more films like this. Films that remind me that maybe overcoming life's obstacles isn't always about just applying Chris logic or Hartwell rationale, and that sometimes those that so unfortunately are viewed by society as less than can bring something to the table and actually help me to see something in a way that I couldn't otherwise have seen it. And it's for all these reasons I will give Finding Dory a 4 out of 5. I highly recommend the film and think there's a lot in there to enjoy and also kind of just parse through and chew on. I'm going to actually ask you guys to do the impossible task once again and ask you to comment below as to where this kind of falls in your Pixar lineup. If you're interested in knowing where it falls into mine, I will post a link below for my list of the Pixar rankings. Now, before I close things out, I really need to take a second and thank just 9 amazing people. Allison, Alistair, Brooke, Bryant, Dave, David, Josh, Luke, and Rachel. Guys, look into my eyes and see me sincerely say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You are the first patrons on patreon.com to support me, and that means the world to me. The fact that you would not just take your time to watch my content and engage so excellently in the comment section below, but actually would support me financially. It's humbling. It honestly is, and it's profoundly meaningful, and I just am now so much more excited than I even already was to continue to produce content for you guys, to make you proud, to make you really enjoy what I'm doing. So thank you so much, sincerely, for doing that. If anyone else is interested in what Patreon is, I will leave a link for that below, and you can check that out. Finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.